Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Special welcome to Helena Rudd, the marketing director of the HOD Group, which is sort of like a cutting edge entertainment entity within the United Kingdom with, quite a few tentacles, which is really interesting. So Helena, you're welcome. You're very welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. You're very welcome. So, first off, I'm just going to dive right into it. Could you just tell us a little bit about the Rudd Group and, how you've evolved and, just give us a little bit of a background before we start, perhaps talking about the sales or anything like that. Yeah.
So the Rudd Group was started in about 1989 by my father-in-law, Bob Rudd. So the first division
Oh,
was
wow.
Bob Rudd gaming and amusement machines, so fruit machines, pool tables, jukeboxes. Very much a family affair. So Nick, the current MD, is Bob's son and also my husband. He took over
Excellent.
as MD at about 2011, 2012. His sister Charlotte also works in the business, so and his mum did work in the business. So all very much still family owned, family run, independent company. We now have many other divisions. So we have diversified into supplying things like ice makers, glass washers, full entertainment systems, CCTV. Everything is for the UK hospitality industry. So we supply our network of technicians and collectors and sales staff are all there to support the UK licensed trade, basically.
Yeah. Going back a bit to 2011, I remember sort of like growing up in those days at the seaside. Well, going to the seaside like Weymouth and Bournemouth and going and remember what were those polka dots? Space Invaders, that's the
Oh
one.
yeah,
Space Invaders, yeah. So can you imagine? I was even talking about Space Invaders with my daughter. Was it the other day? She was talking, we're just talking about different like entertainment and how things have changed. So that's great. So that's a show of, that's a sort of like a proof of sustainability. So you guys have been in it for the long haul. You're here today, you're surviving and you're pushing through. And obviously you're growing. Excellent. So let's say given your kind of the Rudd Group's expertise, what's one misconception would you say about shortening the sales cycle that you might encounter, perhaps
so
within your entertainment industry?
so it's the sales cycle is a very long one within this
Right.
industry. So we are very much it's a relationship industry. So a
Yeah.
lot of the sales are based on BDMs knowing people from 10 years ago, for example. So what I tend to do in marketing and our sales director tries to do is anybody new into the industry or new into our company, it's how we give them all the tools that a rep who's been here 20 years would have, which is where technology and data analysis and using the AIs really come in to show. So this the BDM who's there frontline now, who may never have worked in the licensed trade, they've got at least some proof behind them to go to a licensee and they can then say, look, this is how well we would think this product can work in your venue.
So yeah, it is. I mean, I know that a lot of, the sales cycle is a kind of, sometimes it can be a bit cumbersome. It's a long thing, but then, you go through it, and it always sort of like gets to the end. So let's just say in a rapidly evolving industry, how do you identify and adapt your outreach strategies? Let's say, for instance, because it has to obviously resonate with your decision makers. I mean, you mentioned it's about, who talking, building relationships. So how do you adapt that thing? How do you make it personal so that it really resonates with
So
your prospects? Yeah.
that's a really good question. It's something that we've been focusing on a lot, I would say, over the last 12 months. Because as you can imagine, we sell to such a wide spectrum of people. So it might be Dave who owns the Dog and Duck, and that's just his
Yeah.
pub. He's had it for 25 years. But then we also do tenders for all the largest pubcos like Stonegate, Whitbread,
Yeah.
Punch Taverns,
Yeah.
all of
Whitbread.
those. So it's talking to people with different interests, stakeholders with different targets to meet, if you like. And we
Yeah.
do that. I've been heavily working actually myself on building a lot of custom GPTs within like ChatGPT, for example, which
Excellent.
allows us to change our messaging to suit whoever it is who needs it. It's something
Yeah.
I'm really interested in. I find it very interesting to see the psychological and behavioural interests of different people at different levels. Um, so then we tend to make everything fit to their purpose, and you would hope that obviously something that Dave at the Dog and Duck wants to know isn't the same as somebody who attended.
Yeah, definitely. So that you've got so you're kind of like you're talking about segmentation really, because obviously, everybody you're going to have different types of customers, different expectations, and then you have to be a bit tactile. You have to know how to deal with this particular person as
Yeah.
opposed to that type of customer. That's really interesting. So obviously, it's an industry that thrives on relationships. So how do you sort of like balance the need for speed in a sales cycle with the importance of building those sort of like lasting connections that are critical really for sustaining long-term relationships? How do you do that? How do you balance that?
So we always, the customers always comes first, as in most
Yeah,
businesses, but we
yeah,
always tend to know that a customer will ring us up and want the product at the last minute. That's kind of how this industry works. So all of a sudden they'll realize that their pub's opening in the next 2 days. And that might have been something that they've just overlooked, for example, getting an ice machine and suddenly they need one, or it might be that they didn't realize it was going to open so quickly. And the way we're set up and the way we're structured, we have the ability to jump through all those hoops and get things in very quickly. It's how we've always been. And I would say it's probably a USP. I mean, it can be an operational nightmare, as you can
yeah,
imagine, but
yeah. Exactly. I was about
we
to say
want people
that.
to rely on us, and obviously people then tend to not forget that you've done that for them.
Yes,
And
yes,
so it builds the relationship, and obviously we offer premium products and brilliant support, so we don't then let them down at any stage. Um,
right.
so what we like to do is you nurture that customer until it gets to the point they're like, oh, suddenly I need that thing that they've been telling me about all of this time, and then
Yeah.
it's us that they call.
Fantastic. Yeah, so it's still very kind of tactile as we were saying. So I mean, so what role do you see? I know you spoke about AI and obviously technology, and obviously you guys are sort of like cutting edge. You want to adapt all of that, because it has a central role in logistics and everything. This sort of like day and age. So what role do you see emerging technology? Let's talk specifically sort of like AI playing in streamlining the early stages of the sales cycle.
Yeah.
From sort of like lead qualification, you've got to qualify them, the right leads, and then also go on to sort of initial engagement. Within the entertainment space. How do you see technology, the new technology, so to speak, coming up in that?
Yeah, so I think, well, it's nearly 3 years ago now, brought in two guys to form our own business intelligence team. So this was something that was
Okay.
quite unheard of within the industry, quite forward thinking by our MD to bring this in. And even internally was a bit like, oh, what are these guys going to do? Um, and now they are sort of the forward thinking arm. So they've developed all our data dashboards, so they input data from, I mean, it's a vast range of different things. So it can be when a fruit machine's played and all of that
Yeah.
data to our Google AdWord leads that come in. So it's
Yeah.
all of this data we can then analyze, and we've built our own AI models off the back of this that interpret all the data and spit it out in natural language. So we can now, like I say, you go back to a new BDM coming in, you can give them a tablet to go to site with, and they can get their
Yeah.
dashboard up and they can sit there in the sales um, call and they can go, oh, well, based on our AI model, it says your machine taking would be this. And it's all
Right.
based on historical data,
Yeah.
their geographical location, and also match segmentation data, which
Excellent.
is a specialist hospitality segmentation of pubs. So it's a way of us comparing pubs, say, in the northwest to the northeast,
Yeah.
and then being able to use data from both of those to say, well, we think if you put this machine in, you would get a weekly revenue of X. And obviously that
Brilliant.
massively shortens. It's like a proof. You're giving someone proof of what the product can do. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
and it's that massively does shorten the sales cycle because people believe what you're saying because it is being
yeah,
data driven.
yeah, yeah. Brilliant. So, do you see, so like, do you anticipate shifts in, say, perhaps content consumption or audience engagement with that? Let's say, for instance, will it force changes in how sales and business development is conducted specifically to your sector?
I
How,
think
how, how do you, yeah,
we're still, I go back to, we are a traditional industry, and
right, yeah,
the hospitality industry is built on relationships, and people go
yeah,
to the pub to speak to people. I don't ever see them go into a pub to be served by a robot, for example. Um,
no, no,
because if they want a glass of wine, they can have that at home much cheaper. So that's
yeah, of
great.
course, yeah,
But I think AI and all of the technology will sit behind the scenes and it'll make things, for
that's,
example, like a pub's rhythm of the week. So when they decide when to have a quiz or a pool night,
yeah,
all of that will be data driven rather than the licensee has a quiet night and fancies doing a pool night. And then that's how the customer will be benefited, the actual end
yeah.
user.
Yeah, I think I think what one of the things about AI, obviously, a lot of people talk about, when they think about AI, they think about maybe content that comes out that's very vanilla, that's not authentic, and then especially in the entertainment industry where you're sort of like talking to people face to face, personality is really important, and all that kind of stuff. You use the AI for sort of like the back office stuff, so it kind of makes operational efficiency. That's what you really need. And I can understand, Helena, that in your industry, definitely, because you've got your marketing director, you've got I think you've got four different companies, four different entities.
Yeah.
And I know that whatever happens, it has to sort of like to pool into one particular place where, your MD or I don't know, your sort of like senior upper management have to be able to sort of like to look at it. So that's really interesting. That's really interesting. So, pipeline stagnation, let's say, many businesses, they struggle with stagnation along the pipeline, supply chain and this and that. You mentioned that it was a kind of like quite a long sales cycle.
Mhm.
Um, how, what are the key indicators that the Rod Group would look for to identify maybe perhaps a stalled deal where things perhaps you thought were going to a certain particular place, but just sort of like got derailed? Or what are your go-to strategies to re-energize those particular opportunities?
So I would go back to communication again,
Yeah.
relationships. So most of the people that we do business with, we have a relationship with. Um,
Okay.
it's they're normally a warm lead that's
Yeah.
come in, or it's a referral. So if we thought things were slowing down, and we're very proactive in our communication. So we want
Excellent.
to speak to the customer, we want to know what their thoughts are, how can we help? And how, for example, it might be that they need to refurb an area of their pub before our product can go in, and they've just
Yeah.
not communicated that to us. So we think,
Right.
oh no, they've decided they don't want the product, but actually it's not. It's just there's a delay on their end, and so we will offer
Yeah.
support to say, is there anything we can help with? It could
Right.
be internet connectivity issues because a lot of our products
Right.
now need to have internet.
Yeah.
So we can
POS, your
provide,
POS systems and all that. Yeah.
yeah, we can then provide internet solutions, so we can help. We are very proactive and we do try and help at every stage, which obviously sometimes is a nightmare because we're dealing with things that aren't necessarily under our control. But
Yeah.
ultimately, we want the customer to have the best experience of our product.
Yeah, brilliant. So I know that this is definitely a kind of common sales challenge. I remember that, you mentioned that you talk on, you're dealing with people that warm leads and people that you kind of build up the relationship. I know that I was speaking with somebody the other day and they were talking about their biggest problem is ghosting,
Right.
ghosting, where, the lead just suddenly goes quiet. There's no kind of that interplay or that interrelationship. It kind of looks like it's all like just goes dead. So let's say beyond the initial close, how do you ensure that the sales process sets up clients for long-term success? And, let's say it reduces the churn,
Yeah.
especially in, when you're dealing with very complex sort of entertainment projects and all that kind of stuff. How do you do that?
So again, that's something that the BI team have helped us massively with, because we have a one of our products is the Infinite Entertainment System. So it's a full media package, with background music, digital signage, karaoke, etc., which is a brilliant product, but it's not coin operated. So a licensee might not see the value of it because they're not physically getting a payback from that product. Whereas, so we've got all the data from that product now that feeds into our dashboards, so we can do very easy automated reporting for them to say, well, actually, you can see this many people requested music through the app, this many people paid the quiz per week, and then we can then put numbers behind how many wet sales that could have been, how many food sales it could have been, and then you
Yeah.
can start to build up a picture of how valuable that product is. And again, I would say we're really proactive in our reporting and our communication back to the customer. We very rarely put a product in and leave it and don't communicate. We know that that customer needs nurturing. And on the other side of that, we also have a dashboard that sort of highlights any churn risks. So if usage of a product suddenly drops off a cliff, we've got something that'll highlight that to the MD of that particular segment and say, look, this isn't looking good. You need to contact this
Yeah.
customer and see,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
it a technical issue? Have they just not reported a service problem? Is it that the manager of the pub might have changed and they need training?
Yeah.
So there's high activity with a lot of our products for a lot of staff members, but that's
Okay.
how we do keep long-term contracts.
Okay, fantastic. Excellent. So we're talking about kind of addressing post-sales challenges and like kind of client retention. I guess, so do you have automated messaging and all that kind of thing that works out, or that
So
or is it a bit of a slog? Is it a bit of a slog?
So we don't have anything automated that goes from our systems to our customers. We do have
Yeah.
automations that go from our systems to our staff to then
Right.
contact
Okay.
customers. So
Okay,
again, it's
so
keeping it,
your intranet. Yeah.
yeah. So we're keeping it again, like the relationship alive, the communication. I mean, we do have
Yeah.
some automated reporting, like a daily reporting of how machines have been played that goes directly to customers, but that's a very basic sheet and of information
Yeah.
that they
Okay.
need. But
Okay.
anything that's a risk factor, that would always go through a staff member.
Okay. Oh, brilliant. So yeah, I worked with some sort of like builders and everything like that. Quite, very, I won't mention the name, but very significant sort of like builders. So yeah, we were ingesting information from the CRM to put onto Power BI reports so that, I was leading a team that we were doing that. So I do know, yeah, I understand what you're saying. So let's say, what's a significant challenge you faced in adapting, let's say, outreach approaches for a new segment or emerging trend within the entertainment industry? What's a significant challenge, and what do you feel that you learned from it, or what were the lessons learned, or how did you adapt, or, for next time, or, how do you see that?
Um, I would say probably one of the biggest significant challenges at the moment is getting people to use our data dashboards. So
Right.
we've got all of this at our fingertips. We allow customers access to it. So we're like, it's fantastic. But the challenge that certainly I've been facing as marketing, as part of my role, is how do I onboard those people so they see the value in this? Because not everybody is a data wizard. Not everybody can look at a data dashboard and understand what it means instantly. It's certainly not even a strength of mine. So that's where actually our BI teams really help, because they've then integrated a lot of generative AI into the dashboards, which allows
Yeah.
literally a summary. So if you've
Yeah.
got people who aren't really data driven, they can
Yeah.
quickly go in there and see what that dashboard's telling them.
Yeah.
But it's
There are
still,
tools that do that. Yeah.
yeah. So even with that, it's still that I'm finding the challenge of still getting people to even log in, getting people to even want to look at the data, even though it's so valuable
Yeah.
and they could get a lot of information out of it. So that's certainly what I'm working on.
Okay, yeah. So that, yeah, we there might be a little bit of alignment there with us because we know that there are challenges when it comes to sort of like to onboarding and trying to get people to, to it's a question of buying, isn't it? It's a question of buying to your particular system that you've got going. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I understand that. Yeah. So considering the speed at which the entertainment landscape changes. What would you say your internal processes or cultural shifts? What processes are necessary within an organization to enable a truly agile and responsive sales team? We talk about agile. We mentioned digital transformation. What do what internal processes have you got in place, or you wish you had in place, or you're working on, or.
So again, that goes back to we do a lot of communication, a lot of in-person communication, a lot of video
Yeah.
call communication. We're certainly not the best at it. There will be certain areas that we're launching something over here and somebody over here hasn't heard anything about it. That's what we're really trying to tighten up on. We
Yeah.
are obviously, with having AI, with having the ability to produce content so quickly now using the likes of
Yeah.
ChatGPT, and we've got it honed down so it's very our brand voice. That's massively helping us in terms of content for distribution internally and externally. Um,
Yeah.
I would say it's even things like keeping the website up to date where we've got products launching all of the time. It's trying
Right.
to keep on top of all of that, all of the little things that change. Oh, well, suddenly that product now includes X, Y, or Z, and need to make sure that's on there.
Yeah.
But we do actually, probably where we do a lot of our messaging for new product would be we run a lot of events. So, for example, in January, we are relaunching our darts product, which we have in association with Target Darts. Um, so we've got a big event happening in January, and they're bringing Phil Taylor along, and another professional darts player. It's going to be, and that's a real key way of us getting the message out. And we've got a lot of key industry contacts coming, but also we will take about 20 members of staff to that, and it's staff education as well.
There's a very popular film, series on Netflix that I just finished watching not too long ago about a very popular sort of like sporting company, and
Is it Match Who?
their
Oh,
darts division were just like it. I thought that all the money would be in the boxing, but it's the darts. The
no,
darts
darts.
makes much more money, so it's like that was a real revelation. I was like, wow, because you see all the big faces and you see what's his name is a very kind of like big character, but they're sort of like saying that all the money's in the darts. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. They've really kind of like built it up. So that's really great. I think we've covered a lot. We've spoken a lot. So let's say if you were to give one piece of advice to a business development professional, right? In the entertainment industry, perhaps looking to significantly shorten the sales cycle, because you mentioned it's a long sales cycle. What would that be and why?
Get your data and get your proof and put that in front of the
Right.
customer as the first thing you do, because it's the only thing I see that closes the sale any shorter. Because, as I say, the industry is so ingrained in relationships, and a lot of supply for items is already in or in contract, and it takes a lot for people
Yeah.
to move away from a contract or
Yeah.
end a contract early. And if you've got the proof and the data there, they can't argue with
Right.
it. And it's not,
Right.
you're not then persuading or pressuring people into a sale. You're just saying it is what it is, and then they're making the decision. But obviously, they'd be silly not to go with that decision.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, brilliant. So, like, okay, that you've got this long sales, you mentioned that you've got this long sales kind of cycle and this and that. What would you feel that you just if you were to wave your magic wand, what would that be? What would you sort of like wish for? What would you perhaps systems in place, or are there certain things that you feel that, oh, if only this could